Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the models that I am currently building, but instead of just freestyling and talking about the models themselves, I also wanted to go over some of the lore for each model, some of the rules and things that I think are really cool on the gameplay side of each model, and then I will also cover my building and painting experience. I hope this style of video is entertaining to you all, and you can always let me know what you'd like to see and any feedback you have on the video in Discord and also on the comments for this video. First up is Pontifex Zenestra, who is the leader of the Cult of the Wheel. And as far as cults go in Warhammer, this one is way up there in terms of fanaticism, with members actually forsaking the use of wheels in everyday conveniences like carts. For example, Zenestra herself is carried on a palanquin by two burly boys, and there's no doubt that she has the protection of Sigmar's power within her. And it's even said that in her youth, she had some achievements that led to Sigmar's famed hammer Galmaraz being touched to her, giving her some, Azerite power. However, that would actually date Pontifex Zenestra to a lifespan that is beyond the average human. So this might be why some people actually fear that where her power comes from might not be from Sigmar. There's something darker going on. There's a skeleton on the back of her sedan that people can see looks very similar to her, holding the same hourglass that she wields when she goes into battle. Regardless of where her power stems, the soldiers around her fight with incredible vigor, double the ferocity, and their fatigue and wounds just seem to drain away as they are renewed in any sort of task that they set themselves to. When we talk about Pontifex Zenestra as an actual model on the table, I think she's really, really interesting because she's one of the only two cast priests in the entire game. I don't even know if there is another one. If there is, you can tell me about it. But either way, she's got a very exciting warscroll prayer, which actually lets you choose from multiple different modes to either buff allies their movement to give them a +5 ward, or she has another mode where you can damage any wizard on the map regardless of where they are. And I was so excited to play with her the other day that I put her into a 1,000-point battle. Now, I don't know if I would use her specifically at 1,000 points, but she did live up to the expectations that I was hoping for. She did quite a bit, and I was able to get these higher value prayers off in a single turn using multiple casts, or maybe even just build up one of those super prayers where you get their second effect because I was building up these ritual points super easily. Now at 240 points, she's pretty expensive relative to the cities of Sigmar, costs that they typically have, but I would still definitely run her when I'm going to go for 2k points, and I would have to consider, maybe not for the 1k points. Moving on to the building experience, she was really fun. All the new models are quite easy to put together, but that doesn't mean there isn't depth or customization. You still have all of those options. There just isn't really, I just find there's no frustrating pieces, where I get that all the time with some of the older models that I've built, some of the Lumineth models. There's things that are quite annoying to get through. Either way, nothing was in danger of breaking, nothing, gave me any trouble. The customization options were mostly, they were fine. They mostly had to do with the acolytes that accompanied her. I wish I had done a sub-assembly for painting because I actually put the acolytes, the cart, the whole thing all together, and it ended up being really tricky to get into certain places. At the end of the day, I think it actually worked out fine. But, I just would have rather, had an easier time of getting some of those really hard to reach details. Speaking of which, I had a super hard time with the skeleton on the back of the palanquin. I made the mistake of looking online and seeing what other people were doing with it, and I have literally no idea how they managed that level of detail. I also started working on my Freeguild Command Corp, and specifically, I painted the Arc Knight and the Great Herald, or at least they're in progress of being painted. So let's talk about the lore for these guys. So the Freeguild Command Corp are a group of experts all in different fields, and their job is to aid the Freeguild Marshal by sharing their knowledge. So the first model that I worked on was the Arc Knight, and to become an Arc Knight, you actually have to be the best fighter in your entire regiment. You must stay close to the Marshal during every battle to protect them, and you have to have total mastery over your weapon. So specifically, my Arknight is going to have total mastery over his Warhammer. The Great Herald, on the other hand, holds the Banner Heraldril, which will be planted in the spot that the new city or whatever thing the Dawnbringer Crusade is looking to found. It's going to be planted there. If it's not a force that is going to fight to found a city, then they just might have the banner for that regiment and to carry it, wherever it is. You might also notice on this model they have a huge horn, and that is for sounding the advance, sounding the retreat, or possibly sounding the charge, which is all very cool. And I can't wait to kind of have that roleplay as part of my game when I have my Great Herald out in front with the whole army following up behind him. The rules for the Command Corp were greatly reduced in the 4th edition of Age of Sigmar, which is good and bad. I mean, it's not a bad thing overall, but I do wish the unique models had more of a stake on their war scroll. You have this, get to use a specific command ability twice effect that kind of just covers everybody because the different commands kind of match up with the different skills of the command core, but it's not nearly as cool lore wise compared to what we had before. Either way, the command core does have some really good abilities. They are able to increase the cost of a command for your opponent, so that could mean that they actually can't cast it if they don't have enough command points, or they have to waste a command point just to not spend an extra one. And that effect is really cool, as it can really spoil your opponent's best laid plans. Overall, the best part about this unit is that it has an actually pretty good combat profile. It hits pretty hard. It also has a +5 ward when it's fighting with the Freeguild Marshal, which adds some extra survivability. So that makes it kind of a must take with the Freeguild Marshal, although I'm going to try it without, because I think you can kind of get locked into decisions where you're like, oh, these two things go together, I must always play them together, and then you never get to learn more about them by separating them apart. So I will try both ways because the Marshal doesn't always feel good to take, especially when it dies in combat. It's a pretty weak foot hero. Of course, it has range options, whatever. I'm going to be working on kind of how that all comes together, but in a 2K list, it does make a lot of sense to bring the Foot Marshal, the Command Corps, and have them fight together as a duo. The Command Corps were pretty easy to build, and what's really neat is that every single one of them has customization options, so you can really make them look the way that you want, and kind of not a single one gets pigeonholed, I guess, except for maybe the little Gargolian dog thing. But either way, they're pretty easy to build. They're pretty much a lot harder to paint, specifically the Great Herald, because he has a flag that has lots of detail, but also is like fluttering in the wind. And so that leads to some pretty tough angles and like spaces to get into, which is going to be fine. I'm really excited to try that out. He also has a lot of straps and belts and small metal pieces, which is pretty typical for Cities of Sigmar. The Arknight is actually way easier to paint because he's mostly wearing armor everywhere. So there are some key places where you can add some accent colors and some personality, but overall he's an easier model. The other ones I haven't started painting yet, but they all have a lot more detail compared to the Arknight. So I'm still working on both these models, but I'm really happy with it where they are so far, and I hope that you like what I've done as well. Okay, so that's it for what I'm currently working on, but I am going to make another one of these videos because I've started building some models, not even primed or painted yet, but I will be kind of giving an update on those, sharing some information about them, and they are part of my Lumineth Realm Lords faction that I'm working on. So until the next video, hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you're working on because I really would love to see that. And when I say see that, that means you have to get on the Discord so that we can talk about it. You can send some photos. Otherwise, you can just let me know in the comments down below, and we'll see you all again in a future video.